What's going on? Welcome back to the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel, and we are talking tight ends today. You need one of them, and you often can't get the best of them. But here are our flag plant players, are my guys at the tight end position, and here to break it down with me is Nick Lepre. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. Nick, I bet you're pretty excited to talk about the tight ends today.
No, I'm actually not. I hate talking about tight ends. This is like one of the worst experiences that I could go through. No, I'm only kidding. I like tight ends, obviously. Wink, wink. You know what I'm saying? I'm very excited about talking about the tight end position today, and I think we're going to get a lot of information from this, and I hope the audience enjoys today's video.
Yeah, absolutely. The truth is the tight end position. Are you one of these like abolish the tight end position in fantasy people? Or do you think that it adds a wrinkle that is worthwhile within the game? Because I'm actually like that, but I feel like I'm starting to become like old man yells at clouds with like, no, we need tight ends. Like the truth is like there's 3 or 4 difference makers at the tight end position, and then there's like people just scraping at scraps, right? It's really tough at the second half of the position here.
Yeah,
Pretty
there,
much
there's
every year.
some leagues where people try to do like wide receiver / tight end. I just think that's just stupid. If I'm being honest with you, like either get rid of the tight end position as a whole, or just play with them like normal. I'm still all for the tight end position. I'm still all about the tight end train because I really think they are important to football. You got to have them on your fantasy team, except for like kickers, right? They're important in the NFL. There's no way you should have those in fantasy.
And, there's been a lot of variations with scoring, tight end premium formats, 2 tight end formats. So we're getting creative within the fantasy football space about making this position interesting. And obviously, there are some superstars at the top. Honestly, let's start there. And before we do, guys, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell as well. Helps us out. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. Follow me at Draftaholic. You know the drill. Let's talk about the top 3 players. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, they're 1-2. Sometimes Andrews goes for more than Kelce in draft capital, but typically it's Kelce first. Then it's Andrews. And then it's my guy, Kyle Pitts. And before I go into the specifics about why Kyle Pitts is my favorite, I do want to talk about those 3 players compared to everybody else. And some people add Darren Waller and George Kittle to that mix, but I specifically do not. These 3 players, they are first and foremost the outright favorite to lead their team in targets. They have talent profiles that mean they could be hyper efficient on that large opportunity. And if you look at their value compared to the rest of the tight end position for your opponents, they offer a clear positional advantage if they just meet their ADP based expectations. If they exceed their expectations, it's the type of value that unless there is some sort of George Kittle, his breakout year that you can get in the last round, which is never guaranteed, they present a value that you literally can't make up for at any other time in the season. So I am trying to get one of these top 3 tight ends. Travis Kelce is one of my highest rostered players in my season-long leagues just because I believe that even though the age is a bit advanced, these players take a little bit longer to fall off than the elite wide receivers. But now we move into why Kyle Pitts is my favorite in the top 3. Mark Andrews has target competition this year as the number 2 tight end. Travis Kelce is in a new look Chiefs offense without Tyreek Hill, and there is some target distribution questions at the very least. I don't think there's very much, but Kyle Pitts, there's absolutely none. A freak of nature athletically. And if you look at Kyle Pitts' rookie year and you look at some of the elite receivers with elite draft capital, just take the tight end name out of it, his rookie year kind of looks like rookie year Calvin Johnson. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Calvin Johnson this year, but it's 6'6", 245, running a 4.49 40. And with the amount of production he had as a first-year player at the tight end position, 15 yards per reception on 110 targets, The sky's the absolute limit for this guy. Let's see if Mariota can get him the ball. Let's see if Mariota can duplicate or even increase that 20% target share. I think he's still going to get almost a third of the team's air yards and in expected fantasy points per game. I think you could see an increase from that tight end 8 spot he was at last year, easily to go top 3 in opportunity value. Kyle Pitts, especially at that lowered ADP compared to Andrews and Kelsey, is that perfect combination of floor, ceiling, and draft value. He is a smash at ADP.
Yeah, do you guys remember that crazy Delaney Walker season a couple of years ago? That was with quarterback Marcus Mariota in Tennessee. So that is just another thing to discuss. And it's pretty interesting right now, real quick, and then we can pivot off of this, how much Andrews has moved away from Kelsey. It seemed like early on, a couple of months ago, Kelsey and Andrews they weren't necessarily going back to back in the draft, but there was only a couple of picks difference. Their ADPs right now are definitely a lot further away. Right now, Travis Kelsey is 12.8 and Mark Andrews is 21.7. So it's just interesting to see that people are kind of really heavily moving in favor of Kelsey. And then Pitts keeps moving on up the board. Pitts' ADP right now, 28.2. I am all with you, though, here. In fact, when we're talking about tight ends here, I really think there is a big gap between the top 3 and then the next 2 guys afterwards.
And I think if we're being honest, Kittle and Waller, in terms of best ball, in terms of spike weeks, they're not fades. But in terms of season-long leagues, I'm pretty off these players at ADP, especially considering the wide receivers I can get in that tier. And even if they fall, the running backs, sometimes quarterbacks are falling as well. Like the A.J. Dillons, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts hangs out in the places where Darren Waller and George Kittle are often going. So I think where your first guy is going is the next time I'm really looking at the tight end position. Hit us with your first flag plant tight end.
All right, my first flag plant tight end is tight end of the Dallas Cowboys, Dalton Schultz, currently coming off the board in a majority of leagues as the tight end number 6. I have seen him go ahead of Waller and Kittle like once or twice, but in reality, it seems pretty clear that there's the top 5 and then there's Schultz in every single draft. Dalton Schultz last year basically shook up the entire world, right? I don't think really anyone saw Dalton Schultz coming, and no one really thought that he would have, even when he started popping off early on, I was like, oh, maybe this is a bit of it's just a bit lucky, right? He's not going to see 100+ targets. He's not going to potentially get close to 1,000 yards. Now, he got 104 targets, 78 receptions, 808 yards, 8 total touchdowns for Dalton Schultz. Now, Dalton Schultz's teammate, Amari Cooper, is now in Cleveland. There is worries about Michael Gallup's health. There's talks about how maybe the team could play him week 1, but they're playing things safe. I don't even know if that's true. I feel like Michael Gallup might not play the first 3, 4, 5, 6 games of the season. And if that is the case, while I'm a fanboy of Jalen Tolbert, and I love talking up Jalen Tolbert, at the end of the day, we know what Dalton Schultz is, and we know that he could be the number 2 wide, or not number 2 wide receiver, but number 2 target in this offense with CeeDee Lamb. And with the red zone ability that Dalton Schultz has, this is a guy that could easily finish inside of the top 3 at the tight end position. I understand some people talk about how he's boring. He's not this crazy freak athlete like Kyle Pitts, but what he is a pretty solid tight end on an offense that's going to be throwing the ball a decent amount with a quarterback that, if I talked about this a lot, Dak Prescott was very inconsistent last year. If Dak is able to stay consistent this year, then I really think Dalton Schultz could have a humongous showing and finish inside the top 3 at the tight end position yet again. So I love Schultz this year. And I'm very excited about what could happen potentially if Gallup misses some serious time.
I don't think Gallup's missing serious time. That's the only caveat here. But I do agree with you that Schultz is in line to be the receiver 2 on this team. His expected fantasy points higher last year than Kyle Pitts. The value of his opportunity higher than Kyle Pitts. His target share still just 16%. I think there's some meat on the bone there. I think it can increase up to 20, 22%, especially when Gallup is not playing. So agree with you there. You know, I do think Dalton Schultz is a really strong pick at ADP. You know, there's this big break, usually about 15 to 18 picks between Kittle and Schultz. And then you get into the Goddard Hawkinson range, and that gets really hard. Honestly, to that point, I usually say if you're getting to this point of the tight end tier, what's the difference between the tight end 9 and the tight end 16? Which is why I'm going against everything I usually stand for and that I've previously stood for on this fantasy football channel, and going with Dawson Knox. as one of my guys, one of my flag plans. I'm trying to stay fluid, stay agile in this situation, and I thought that the team bringing in OJ Howard indicated that they wanted to move away from Dawson Knox as a red zone option. Knox had 9 receiving touchdowns last year on 71 targets. That's an insane touchdown rate. I kind of just naturally fade players like that the following year, thinking, well, if the volume stays the exact same, they're probably not going to be scoring the same touchdowns per target. They're probably worse in fantasy. But this offense, the quality of the quarterback, the amount of red zone trips, the amount of passing attempts per game we expect, it's enough for Dawson Knox to succeed. I'm not saying that he's as likely to succeed as Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs or even Devin Singletary, but I am saying that if you're getting 6 targets a game in Buffalo's offense, we're in business here. And if you're approaching that 7 targets per game mark in Buffalo, you're every single week must start tight end. So the line here to get to must start, we're butting up against it any tight end 9 or tight end 10 in ADP.
Yeah.
I think he is the exception to the rule. Take him in the mid rounds. I really like Dawson Knox this year.
Yeah, I've been someone who's been talking up Dawson Knox for months at this point. I really do like Dawson Knox. I almost took him as one of my guys, but I decided to kind of spread them out a little bit more. I'm really interested in what is going to happen with this Buffalo Bills offense. I think that even though Gabe Davis is getting just thrown up the draft board, thrown up higher and higher and higher, Gabe
Vomited
Davis doesn't
up the draft board.
Yeah, exactly.
Thrown up the draft board.
Gabe Davis isn't someone who profiles as a guy that's like some type of red zone threat. I know he scored a zillion touchdowns against the Chiefs, but that's not because he was just throwing the ball in the red zone. It's because the guy is just that good of a player. Dawson Knox inside of the red zone is a big target for Josh Allen. And like you said, they're the Buffalo Bills. We expect them to be in the red zone a lot. We expect them to score a lot of points. So it's entirely possible that Dawson Knox even scores more touchdowns than he scored last year and goes absolutely insane. And I'm very excited about Dawson Knox. I understand the amount of targets to touchdown total concerns some people, but I'm not concerned at all. I really am just sold in on this Buffalo Bills offense. I would genuinely be shocked if they were a bad team this year, and I expect them to potentially make the Super Bowl. So they've got to be good. So Dawson Knox, in my opinion, is not a sleeper, right? Because he's going at pick 103.2, but he is a guy that I think is undervalued right now.
Adequate percentage of a strong enough offense. Really that simple. And he plays a position that we need one of.
Yeah. Definitely.
No need to overcomplicate. Hit us with do you have 2 more, my guys? You definitely have one more that I like this call when you were putting together the show sheet today.
Yes, I have one more guy and then kind of more of an honorable mention. So my final guy here to discuss is Big Bob Tonyan, Robert Tonyan, tight end of the Green Bay Packers. ADP right now, he's tight end 18, pick 163.8. Now, he did just come off of the pup a couple of days, maybe not days ago, maybe it was like a week ago. And if I'm being honest with you, we're kind of at the point of no return to where his ADP can only move up so high. People aren't going to adjust and start drafting him as a top 12 tight end yet. He would have had to come off the pup probably like a month ago for that to happen. But in my opinion, you could make the argument that maybe you want to draft Robert Tonyan over some of these other guys that are going inside of the top 12 right now. For instance, guys going ahead of him, Gerald Everett, David Njoku, Hunter Henry, Albert O, Irv Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Cole Kmet. All of those guys, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we actually saw Robert Tonyan finish ahead of them this season. So I like Robert Tonyan a ton. I think he is going to potentially be one of those consistent pieces in the Green Bay Packers offense. We talk a lot about how Aaron Rodgers really likes throwing to guys that he has a strong connection with, and we have seen that connection with Robert Tonyan in the past. He's one of those guys that you probably faded last year based upon what you were just talking about, how he scored a crazy amount of touchdowns. That's bound to not happen again. It didn't happen. He ended up getting hurt. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was a guy that was at like 8, 9 touchdowns this year. And at tight end number 18, that is just an immense value.
I can't get behind this one. Respect the hell out of you, bud, but I don't think he's ready to play yet. I know they need weapons in this offense. They said it was going to be receiver by committee, so maybe some weeks it is Robert Tonyan, but you're one tight end on your main team. Ooh, the upside is there. It's absolutely there. And the connection in terms of Rodgers sticking to throwing passes to only people he trusts, absolutely, that's real. So in that regard, I think that is a positive for Tonyan. This year, I just am not sure. I would love to be wrong, especially at tight end 18 free, like last pick in your draft level. That's a pretty good one. All right, hit us with your honorable mention.
Yeah, and real quick with Tonyan, if you're not comfortable with him, just draft 2 tight ends, right? If you waited that long in the draft to draft one, you could just draft 2, and then maybe Tonyan is shit, you just cut him. But if he's good, then you can play him every single week. So my honorable mention is probably the guy you actually like better. That is going to be Mr. Tyler Higbee, tight end of the LA Rams, going slightly lower down than Robert Tonyan. Tonyan was tight end 18, Higbee tight end 20, pick 169. Nice. 0.1. I like Tyler Higbee a lot this year. He's one of those guys that he's basically going undrafted, and he's a part of one of the better offenses, just like we talked about with the Buffalo Bills. Tyler Higbee doesn't make me feel like, oh, I'm going to win my league when I draft Tyler Higbee. He doesn't make me feel like, oh, Tyler Higbee is going to win me my week. But he also feels like a guy you throw into your lineup and you play him, and he's going to do all right. And now Gerald Everett is not there. He's in LA with the other team, the Chargers. So I think Tyler Higbee is in a pretty good spot to easily smash his ADP. And again, I'm just trying to target a tight end that's on a great offense. And I think this offense in LA with the Rams is going to be great yet again. So I'm a big fan of Tyler Higbee. And we do know that Matthew Stafford isn't opposed to throwing to the tight end.
Absolutely not. And a 16% target share within one of the most pass-happy, high-paced offenses in the league, like the Rams, is going to get you a high amount of expected fantasy points. In expected fantasy points per game, of all the flag plant players, including Pitts and Schultz, Higbee was the top player of all of our flag plant players last year in expected fantasy points per game. Now, I expect that opportunity value to increase for both Schultz and Pitts to the point where they overtake Higbee this year. But just letting you know, the value of just even a moderate role on a top offense like Higbee has can be incredibly value. Full in on that one. And it's the same reason, really, why I'm going with Albert O. Greg Dulcich, who was getting a lot of noise, the rookie third round tight end, looked like he was going to be a valuable piece of this passing offense, but now has a hamstring injury that has put him on injured reserve, and now he's out for the next month. That means Albert O essentially has to play pretty much every down for the Denver Broncos. Who do they have behind him? Essentially nobody. Now, I do think KJ Hamler is going to play a lot. I think, obviously, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are going to get theirs. I think in terms of offensive weaponry, they consider Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams more important to the team's overall success. But Albert O is going to get his. Albert O is going to increase his expected fantasy points per game from 5.0, like it was the last time we saw him on the field, to something significantly higher because of the red zone opportunities he will inevitably get with Russell Wilson, now a very, very rich man, as his quarterback. Andrew Beck and Eric Sauber are not taking valuable snaps from Albert O. And I know he was playing late in the preseason, getting people real nervous. And we're talking about a player who was tight end 30 in points per game last year, a little bit better in 2020 before he got hurt. This player's only played in 18 total games in their career, and yet I think he is my favorite of the flyer options when you're talking about end of the draft tight ends. You in on Albert O?
I was in, then I was out. Now it seems like there's good reason to be back in because Greg Dulcich is banged up. Man, this is an offense that is going to be very interesting to see what happens because at the wide receiver position, I think Cortland Sutton's the guy, but there's still a way that Jerry Jeudy is the guy. At running back, I think Javonte Williams is going to potentially lose some of his work to Melvin Gordon. There's also potential that Javonte Williams is just the bell cow back on this team. So this is a very interesting team to see in 2022 what they're going to be. I'm fine taking Albert O because, again, we've talked about it the whole video. I want the tight end on the team that is going to be very good. The Denver Broncos project to be a team that is excellent on offense. So I'm fine taking Albert O. I'm just wondering, like, is he going to start off the season looking good, or is this going to be one of those plays where you draft him, scores like 7 points, and then eventually he just like 2-3 weeks in just goes crazy?
That's the entire tight end position, though. Like that is the fact of the matter, guys. Like we try to get our best plays in, we try to figure out, read the tea leaves, get all that news in, but at the same time, these are very volatile players, except for the very top,
true.
and which is why we talked about the value of those very top tight ends this year. The natural volatility is going to come in there. So let's just hope the floor is just good enough and the ceiling weeks are worthwhile. This has been an awesome series, Nick. I'm really excited about the season. I mean, week 1 right around the corner. We're talking like our must starts for every position next week. We're finally here. I can smell it in the air. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. Oh, wait a minute. I got to talk about our sponsor today. Holy moly, Drafters. I'm sorry. Drafters has been an awesome partner so far, and they are offering best ball contests, which, first of all, best way to play fantasy football. You just draft your team, win huge prizes. But they've got so many great contests over there for the NFL season. The $1 million Drafters Championship, the 222 Championship, $2.22 to enter. And it looks like there might be some overlay as well. We have a promo code for you, Stokastic, Stokastic, that gets you one free ticket to that $1 million Drafters Championship when you put in a ticket to that tournament. If you put in 2 tickets to that tournament, you will get the Stokastic Best Ball Kit and Draft Kit, a $70 value, absolutely free. Again, that's promo code Stokastic, Stokastic, or you can click the link in the video description below. Those were tight ends. That is the conclusion of our Flag Plant series. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. He's Nick Lepre. I'm Matt Savoca at Draftaholic for the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel. We'll see you guys in week 1.